Hey everybody, it's Ron from Pick Dawgz, and this is Ron's Rundown. We're going to go over the Saturday MLB games for March 29th, 2025. Now, if you like this video, make sure to hit that thumbs up button and subscribe. Put your baseball picks in the comments section below. And if you're looking for my best bets in baseball and other sports, the games I love the most, you can find those at the Premium Picks tab at pickdawgz.com. There's also a link in the description. I still got that MLB season pass up there. Get you every single premium selection I release. Money lines, totals, player props in the regular season and postseason. Already off to a profitable start to the season, so let's keep it going and crush the books in 2025 in Major League Baseball. Alrighty, here we go. Here are the games for Saturday in baseball. First up, it's the Milwaukee Brewers and the New York Yankees. We got Nestor Cortes making his Brewers debut, facing his former team in this one, and Max Fried also making his team debut with the Yankees. And so we have a pair of lefties on the mound in this ball game. And, Nestor Cortes pitched pretty well in spring training. 11 innings of work, 14 strikeouts, 3.27 ERA. I think he puts together a solid campaign for Milwaukee. This is a franchise that really knows how to manage its starting pitching. So I look for Cortes to put together a good year in 2025. Max Fried, I think, will also pitch well for the Yankees. But we do know last year he struggled early on in the regular season. In spring training this year, his last outing in the spring wasn't his best. 5 1/3, 3 runs, a homer, 3 walks to go with it. I think the Brewers could get to Fried for a few runs, and I do trust this Brewers bullpen in the end. I think the value is there with Milwaukee at this price. I'm going to take the Milwaukee Brewers on the money line in the road. Next up, the Los Angeles Angels taking on the Chicago White Sox. Jose Soriano and Jonathan Cannon are your starters. The Angels were a big letdown on Thursday as they were a big favorite in that game over these White Sox, yet lost the game 8-1. It's never a good sign when you have a position player in Nicky Lopez pitching in the first game of the season for the Halos, but I do think they bounce back here. I still think the White Sox will be historically bad in 2025, and I like the Angels to win this game and potentially cover the run line as well. Jose Soriano is a starter I really liked in 2024, and in spring training, I like the fact that not only did he get a lot of work, but he also had a lot of strikeouts. He's missing a lot of bats in the spring. He does give up some sharp contact here and there. Sometimes his control can be a little bit of an issue. We did see the walks pile up a bit in spring, 18 innings, 9 walks, but he was still the much better option in spring compared to Jonathan Cannon, who really struggled, and I think if he would have pitched a little bit better, he probably would have got the opening day start for Chicago. They were expecting that. But in the month of March in spring training action, 9 1/3 innings, 6 strikeouts, so not really missing a lot of bats, 4 home runs, 11 earned runs, 18 base hits, just not going to get it done. I think the Angels back up Soriano. I think they win this game, get their revenge. I'm going to lay the 1.5 runs on the run line with the Halos. Next up, we have the Minnesota Twins taking on the St. Louis Cardinals. We're going to see Joe Ryan for Minnesota, Eric Fedde for the Cardinals. Now, on opening day, the Twins were kind of behind the 8 ball early on, finding themselves in a 4-0 deficit early, but they were able to battle back a little bit in that game, make it interesting in the final few innings. And I think that the Twins' biggest advantage in this series, and what's going to probably be one of the bigger advantages in most series, is their bullpen. I think it's one of the best in the league. So if this is a close game late, I really like Minnesota's chances to find the W. I think Joe Ryan will pitch pretty well in this game. I don't think it's going to be a spotless outing. We rarely see that from Joe Ryan, but he is a good starting pitching option. He misses a lot of bats. Usually when he gives up runs, it's via the long ball. He gave up 3 homers in spring. He's given up some bombs to this Cardinals lineup in his career. I could see a guy like Lars Nootbaar, maybe Alec Burleson going yard in this game, so maybe a look at the home run prop. But I think that Ryan and Fedde kind of cancel each other out through the middle innings. The Twins take advantage late and win this game in the end. Give me Minnesota on the money line in this one. Next up, we have the Baltimore Orioles taking on the Toronto Blue Jays. Dean Kramer and Max Scherzer are your projected starters. Now, we can't expect vintage Max Scherzer this season for the Blue Jays, but he did pitch really well in spring training. And if he can be a solid 3 or 4 option in this rotation, I think it'll be a big win for the Blue Jays overall. In spring, like I mentioned, 13 innings, 18 strikeouts, only 1 home run, only 1 walk. His control was excellent, and only a few base hits as well. Only 4 base hits total in those 13 innings. So he was great in spring. Dean Kramer had his struggles in the middle of March, but his last outing of the spring was excellent. 5 1/3 innings of 10 strikeout baseball with just 2 runs given up. I think we see a little bit of a pitcher's duel early on in this game. I'm going to lean towards the under in the first 5. I think as the bullpens enter the game and as these starters maybe get towards the end of their outing, we could see the runs start to pile up. So give me the under in the first 5. Next up, we have the Philadelphia Phillies taking on the Washington Nationals. We're going to see Jesus Luzardo and Jake Irvin on the mound. Now, I like the over in this game. I really didn't love either starting pitcher in spring this season. Irvin, his final outing in the spring, gave up 6 earned, 2 homers, 10 base hits to the Cardinals. And, Luzardo, of course, gave up back-to-back-to-back home runs at one point in his outing against the Tigers, 6 runs in that ballgame alone. I think that both offenses can show up. I would say the one concern I have with the over in this game is the fact that this game is being played at 4 p.m. Eastern, the same time that the game started on opening day, where Alec Bohm mentioned in the post-game interview that the Phillies really struggled offensively early in that game because they just couldn't see. The shadows at Nationals Park made it so tough to recognize the pitches from Mackenzie Gore, who you got to give credit to as well, pitched lights out baseball, 6 innings, 13 strikeouts. So I would say maybe early on we could see some struggles with the bats, but I still think that both starters do struggle in the end. I didn't really like the way both bullpens looked in that game either. So give me the over here in Philadelphia, Washington. Next up, the Rockies and the Rays. Antonio Senzatella and Zach Littell are your projected starters. Now, I know the Rockies on the road are not going to be a very popular play this season because of their road record last year and the last decade plus, basically. But I think one of the big reasons why the Rockies struggle away from home is the fact that when you play at Coors Field and then you go on the road, the altitude change is so tough for position players and pitchers alike. And it's why we see the Rockies actually usually have decent records at Coors Field and then struggle on the road. But the Rockies have not played at Coors yet this season. Of course, this is the first series of the season, playing in Tampa. So I think that, I'm willing to take Colorado at this kind of price, with Senzatella having an excellent spring, keeping the ball on the ground. He's not really a strikeout guy. He doesn't really miss a lot of bats, but he limits sharp contact. If he can get out of jams, keep the ball on the ground, I think he pitches pretty well against an otherwise not so great Rays lineup. And then on the other side, Zach Littell did not pitch too well in spring. I've mentioned I think this Rays bullpen is the weakest it's been on paper in a long time. Entering the season, ranked 25th in Fangraphs projected WAR. I'm going to go with the Rockies plus the 1.5 runs in this one on the road. Next up, the Pittsburgh Pirates and the Miami Marlins. Valente Belloso and Bailey Falter are your starters. Belloso really struggled in spring in the month of March, 10 in the third innings. He had 9 strikeouts, so still less than a K per 9, but 5 walks, 5 home runs, 13 earned runs, 16 base hits. I just can't back him in this game. I think Falter's the much better option, and I think the Pirates can get on the board early and this time around hold the lead instead of giving it up like we saw on opening day. So I'm going to go with the Pittsburgh Pirates in this one on the money line and run line. Next up, we have the Cincinnati Reds hosting the San Francisco Giants. Justin Verlander for San Fran, making his Giants debut. Nick Lodolo going for the Reds. Now, the Reds started the season with a lot of players on the injury list, and one of the key ones for me is Alexis Diaz, the closing pitcher for Cincinnati. Not only is he the Reds' best reliever in general, but it's really tough to replace a closer. Everybody has to move up in the bullpen, but there's just a few players that can be in that high leverage, clutch moment. And, Ian Gabot was used in the first game of the series as the closer, and he just did not pitch well. The Giants were able to, for the first time in the game, take the lead and win the game 6-4 final. I worry about that Reds bullpen right now, but I like the Reds in the early, in the starting pitching matchup here. I think they can get to Verlander. He struggled in his final outing in the spring. He's got an ERA above 4 in his career at Great American. I think Lodolo pitches well this year. I think we always know that Lodolo has a lot of potential, a lot of talent in his game. He's struggled to put it all together consistently, and injuries have played a role in that. But I think Lodolo pitches well in 2025. I think the Reds can go on the board early, but I don't want to stress the late innings with the bullpen. So give me the Reds in the first 5 innings on the money line. Next up, the Cleveland Guardians taking on the Kansas City Royals. Seth Lugo for the home team, but no official starter right now for Cleveland. It could be Tanner Bybee, and Bybee was supposed to pitch on opening day. He was a very late scratch because of food poisoning. He was sick the day of the game, so it kind of throws the Guardians' rotation all over the place. So we'll have to see who the official starter is. But I like Cleveland's matchup against Seth Lugo. I've mentioned I do think Lugo regresses quite a bit in 2025. I think he was, in 2024, one of the more fortunate starting pitchers. I still think he'll be a solid option, but nowhere near a AL Cy Young finalist like he was in 2024. I think the Guardians can get to him for a few. I think Cleveland has already shown in the series that they have a bullpen advantage. I like their chances late, so give me the Guardians on the money line in this one. Next up, the Boston Red Sox taking on the Texas Rangers. It's the first game this evening, 7:05 Eastern. Walker Buehler and Tyler Mahle are your starters. I do think the Rangers have the starting pitching advantage in this game. I look for them to get to Walker Buehler early. Buehler, not really my favorite option. Didn't love what I saw from him last year, and especially when he pitches at Fenway Park, his home games, I just don't think it's a good fit for the Red Sox, and I do think he struggles in 2025. So I am looking to go against him here in this spot. The Rangers have a great lineup on paper. We saw the bullpen struggle on opening day, and it's going to be a problem for him at times. But I still think the Rangers bullpen in a better place on paper this year than it was last year. I think they're going to be good enough here to hold on to the lead late. So give me the Rangers on the money line at home. Next up, the New York Mets and the Houston Astros. Griffin Canning and Spencer Arrighetti are your starters. Griffin Canning, similar to Walker Buehler, picked up by the Mets in the offseason as a chance to kind of refurbish his game after a struggling 2024 campaign with the Angels. And I think Canning, he had an excellent spring training. He was 14 innings, about 22 strikeouts, only 1 home run. His control is a lot better. I think Canning has a better chance at having a bounce back or a breakout season compared to a guy like Walker Buehler. And I think Canning pitches pretty well in this game. I don't expect him to go too deep into this ball game, probably about 4 or 5 innings at the most. But I also think the Mets are going to be able to back him up. Arrighetti, I like his game overall, but you look at his outings in spring, 6 starts, 4 of those 6, he had 3+ walks. 3 of those 6, he had 4+ walks. So his control was way off. I think the Mets take advantage of that. Give me the Mets in this one on the money line. Next up, we have the Atlanta Braves taking on the San Diego Padres. We're going to see Spencer Schwellenbach and Randy Vasquez as your starters. Now, while I've mentioned in this series, I think the lineups and bullpens are pretty even. I think these are two very talented teams, pretty even teams. I think this is a big-time pitching mismatch for the Braves with Schwellenbach on the mound. I think really highly of his game in 2025. I think he'll be a really good number 2 or even great number 3 in this rotation. And I just don't think Randy Vasquez is a viable starting pitching option for many rotations, especially the Padres. I think he'd be better suited out of the bullpen or maybe as a number 5, but I don't think he can compete in a matchup like this. I think the Braves get to him early. I think Schwellenbach pitches a quality start. I like the Braves on the money line in this one. Next up, the Chicago Cubs taking on the Arizona Diamondbacks. Shota Imanaga and Brandon Pfaadt are your starters. Brandon Pfaadt, we know he has a ton of talent, but the consistency's been a problem for him in his career thus far. And you just wonder what Brandon Pfaadt you're going to get, because we've seen him put together outstanding starts, especially in the postseason run the Diamondbacks had a couple of years ago. But we also seen him get crushed at times, and it's why his last year ERA was still at 4.71 overall. I think the Cubs can get to Pfaadt for a few in this game, and I think Imanaga is the better option to start this one. I also think we've seen in the first game of this series, while the Cubs bullpen's not great, Arizona's not really in an amazing place either. I think they're going to give up a good amount of runs at Chase Field this season. They have a great offense. They should be able to keep up in most games. But in this one, I think the Cubs take it on the money line. So give me Chicago on the road. Next up, we have the Detroit Tigers taking on the Los Angeles Dodgers. We got Roki Sasaki and Reese Olson on the mound. Now, I think we're going to see a higher scoring game, at least in the first 5 innings or so. I look for the first 5 to go over. Sasaki, I think that he's going to be a great option for the Dodgers by the end of the year, but early on, I expect him to kind of struggle to find his control a little bit, like we saw in that first game against the Cubs. 5 walks allowed in just 3 innings of work. I think Detroit could take advantage of that, but I also worry a little bit about Reese Olson in this game. It's not an easy lineup to face. He had mixed results in spring training. He was a little bit better down the stretch, but I think that we see the Dodgers, find some runs early on as well. I think we get over the total in the full game, but I think I prefer the first 5 over more so give me the over in the first 5. Next up, the Athletics and the Mariners. We got Osvaldo Bido and Bryce Miller on the mound. Bryce Miller in his career against the A's, 24 innings, 30 strikeouts, a 2.25 ERA, and 34 career plate appearances against the current A's hitters, 32.4% strikeout rate, which is through the roof. I think he pitches really well in this game, 5-6 strong innings. On the other side is Osvaldo Bido, inconsistent in spring training, but I think he'll be good enough against the Mariners to keep this game under the total. You can take him in the first 5 under if you don't want to sweat out the bullpens, but I do think we go under the total in the full game as well. And that's it. Those are the games for Saturday in Major League Baseball. Hope you enjoyed this video. Again, if you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at Pick Dawgz Premium, and there is a link in the description. As always, this is Romanelli. Good luck.